Yasu Malaka. Welcome to the Malaka podcast. My top 10 Nintendo Gameboy games. Ladies and gentlemen, picture this. It's roughly the year 1992. And I got a Nintendo. I even got a Super Nintendo. And you think for a kid who at the time looked like a fat Harry Potter, this would be enough. But no, it wasn't. I needed something I could take on the go. And what better to have than a Nintendo Game Boy? And at the time, it was so futuristic for me. It was perfect. You'd buy it, and then you get that excitement of taking it out of the package. And of course, it came with a free game, good old Tetris. Who doesn't love Tetris? I mean, it came with the system, so we had no choice. But games came later, and you put the game into the system ever so gently, and then you hold the system in your hand. Who are we kidding? It was huge. We were using both hands. And then we turn it on, and we see that beautiful red light, and right below it, it says battery. Because back then, everything took fucking batteries. This one took 4 AA's because the system didn't cost us enough already. For those of you under the age of 20, I'm going to explain to you later on what a battery is. The point is, we just waited for the Nintendo logo to show up and make that beautiful sound. And then you knew everything was going to be all right. And then you grow up and you realized how much of a pain in the ass this system really was. I mean, obviously for the time, we had nothing else to play with unless you were into those Tiger stupid games, but no one gave a shit about those. People wanted the real thing. It's like people that want Legos and instead they get those stupid building blocks. It's not the same. It's not Lego. We want the real thing. Nintendo was the big name at the time. It still is in many ways. It's more of a family system these days, Xbox and PlayStation are definitely kicking its ass, but at the same time, it's still there. And it always will be. And Game Boy was around for a really long time. But at the same time, it wasn't the best. And if you don't mind, I'd like to talk to you about my love and frustration about the beautiful thing that is the Nintendo Game Boy. And as always, I'm going to go to Wikipedia, the free encyclopedia, and tell you a little bit more about this lovable yet fucking frustrating system. The Game Boy is an 8-bit handheld game console developed and manufactured by Nintendo. The first handheld in the Game Boy family. It was first released in Japan in April 1989, then North America 3 months later, and lastly in Europe more than 1 year later. It was designed by the same team developed the Game and Watch series of handheld electronic games and several Nintendo Entertainment System games. Satoru Okada, Gunpei Yokoi, and Nintendo Research and Development 1. Now, out of the 4 things I just said there, I know 2 of them I completely fucked up. I apologize. Now, that's true. It was the first handheld game for Nintendo. And before they made all these like game watches, and those are pretty cool too. Again, for its time. You give it to a kid today, they're gonna laugh their asses off. Even today, you go online, people still have these. They go for insane amounts of dollars online. Why would you want this? Why? I wouldn't even want a Game Boy today. I would want it just, to have it. I don't know, like if I'm Indiana Jones and it's just like a relic, in a box, and it's looked by top men. Maybe displayed for jokes and whatever. But I mean, you look at this thing and it's just fucking huge. It's huge. I mean, you have the smallest phones today. But then again, you got some big phones as well. But like, you can play all these great games on your phone now. But before then, obviously, we didn't have phones. I mean, technically we did, but nobody gave a shit about them, unless you're like Zach Morris and, your phone was like the size of Shaquille O'Neal's shoe. And that's all you had, for entertainment. This was the closest thing we had for a portable, decent system. It had sound, it had a screen, had buttons. Yeah, this is, that's right, folks. Back then, this was a huge fucking deal. And, yeah. Could they have done better at the time? No. But, for its time, it was pretty cool. Anyways, Nintendo's second handheld game console, the Game Boy, combines features from both the NES home system and Game & Watch hardware. The console features a dull green. Oh, let me just stop right there for a second. Yeah, this was like the first thing right off the bat. I mean, like, I'm sure a lot of us thought, to ourselves, like you gotta remember, like back in the day, like when they had the box. If you look at the box that the Game Boy came in, it looked fantastic. I mean, like even the hands playing this game looked futuristic. It looked awesome. It looked like it was going to be in 3D, somewhat color. And then you open it and you actually see how the game plays. And yeah, it is just a dull green screen. I can't describe it any better. I mean, they fucking nailed it. And it just showed up as gray and and then you had to be in the light, and it's a whole fucking thing. I'll get into it in a little bit. Anyways, dot matrix screen. There was nothing matrix about the screen. Anyways, with adjustable contrast dial, which again back in the day was very futuristic. I mean, you can kind of make it lighter, darker. I mean, it's like those old VCRs, you could turn the dial and, make it your picture darker, and, the adjustable line there. Again, like nobody under 20 knows what the fuck I'm talking about. The point is, it was a huge pain in the ass. Anyways, 5 control buttons. I know, right? A directional pad, 2 game buttons, and a start and a select button. Whoa. A single speaker with adjustable volume dial. Oh, geez. Now you're just spoiling us. And like its rivals, uses cartridges as physical media for games. The color scheme, I like saying it that way, is made from 2 tones of gray with accents of black, blue, and dark magenta. Listen, nothing, I never saw blue. It was black and gray. I don't know what the fuck they're talking about here. All the corners of the portrait-oriented rectangular unit are softly rounded, save for the bottom right, which is curved. At launch, it was sold either with a standalone unit or bundled with one of several games, namely Super Mario Land or Tetris. Like I said, I got Tetris with mine. God bless the kids that got Super Mario Land. I'm not dissing Tetris. You're gonna. I'm just saying Tetris is a fine game. It would have been nice if it came with both. Anyways, Several accessories were also developed, including a carrying pouch, Game Genie, and printer. Yes, this little brick of a machine actually would print shit out. I still don't believe it. I've seen it online. It's crazy. I don't know why it came with a Game Genie. I mean, again, like everything that you would just add to this, it just looked like a mutation. Anyways, despite being technologically inferior to its fourth generation competitors, Sega's Game Gear, Atari's Link, and NEC's Turbo Express, which are none of the systems I could afford. The Game Boy received praise for its battery life and durability in its construction. Once again, keep in mind, you had to pay for the battery life. It came with some basic batteries. I mean, Nintendo, man, you couldn't give us Duracell or Energizer. I mean, come on. We all saw that cute bunny, help us out. It quickly outsold the competition, selling 1 million units in the United States within a few weeks. An estimated 118 million units of the Game Boy and its successor, the Game Boy Color, have been sold worldwide, making it the third best-selling video game console of all time. It is one of the most recognizable devices from the 1990s, becoming a cultural icon in the years following its release. Several redesigns were released during the console's lifetime, including the Game Boy Pocket in 1996 and the Game Boy Light in 1998, Japan only. Lucky bastards. Production of the Game Boy continued into the early 2000s. Even after the release of its second successor, the Game Boy Advance, in 2001, production ceased in 2003. So really think about it. I mean, this system, like I said, obviously it really does represent one of the best technologies in the 1990s. Obviously for portable games. I mean, Nintendo was everywhere. The home consoles just took over. Nintendo, Super Nintendo, 64, and so on. And so on, and so on, and so on. It was everywhere. But people wanted something portable. And obviously they were competing with all these little gadgets that used to come out, and I don't know what the fuck these things were. I mean, my dad had like a hockey one and a football one. I mean, these things are worth a lot of money for some reason. I don't know why. You could barely make out what the hell's on the screen. There wasn't even anything on the screen. It was all these red lines. You show it to a kid today, they don't know what the fuck this thing is. They probably might think it's a bomb, and it was impossible to play. At least Game Boy somehow made it possible to play portable games. Thank God for that. But at the same time, you look back at it now, and it's just crazy, like how many of us just strained our eyes for so many years. I mean, from 1989 to 2003, that is a long time for this thing to still be relevant. I mean, today things are in and out within a couple years. Like, people don't give a shit. They always want the newest thing. You have a computer, whatever model you buy that day, it's going to be obsolete in what? A few weeks, a few months, whatever. The Game Boy, it stood out. I don't know, maybe it was just, the originality of it, just the way it was shaped, it's just, like I said before, it's like a relic, and people still enjoy it to this day. You can still go online. People are still selling theirs. People still want it. It's considered retro, It's pretty crazy. Like, it really is. It's just insane, like, how much people still enjoy playing these games, including me. Even back then, they weren't that sure that this system was even going to take off. I mean, people are like, well, I like being at home. I like playing my game on a decent sized TV, which at the time most of them were made of wood. And just being in the comforts of your own home instead of like worrying about if it's going to be light out, and I can actually see this game and I can concentrate on playing a game and walking, which is pretty much the same problem we have now. But yeah, I mean, they just weren't sure. It even says here when Yokoi showcased the game to Yamauchi. Yamauchi's reaction to the console at Nintendo was initially very poor, and he nicknamed the game Damn Game, or Dame Game. I don't know how they say it, which basically means hopeless or lame. Now, a guy named Hank Rogers brought the game Tetris to Nintendo America and convinced its president, Mirono Arakawa, again, sorry guys about mispronunciation, to port it for the new system so it can reach a wider audience. Arakawa agreed, and as a result, the game was ultimately bundled with the Game Boy, and the system was released in Japan in April, North America in July, and September the following year in Europe. So again, I mean, they thought, it's never going to catch on. But you know what? Let's just take a chance, And yeah, very simple, They tried to design a controller and a system and a visual screen in one. You got your A button, you got your B button, select, start, and the directional pad, also known as the D-pad. And, took 4 AA batteries, like I said, which back in the day, man, it was a pain in the ass because, a lot of times, it's not like today where you just save a game, right at the same moment, or there's a save thing, whatever, screen, blah, blah, whatever the fuck, memory card in the system, whatever. I've had to deal with a lot of different shit over the years, guys. It's been an uphill battle, but I'll be okay, don't worry. And it would suck because sometimes you'd play the game and the game would just fucking die and you didn't save it, so you're screwed. And yeah, you had to do what you had to do. But again, it was convenient, you go on these like road trips and, you're the kid in the back just chilling and playing some games and, what are you going to do? Talk to your parents? I don't think so. No one's going to do that. You want to play some video games. You want to listen to some music, That's it. That's all you want in life, just to chill. It's fun. That's all. And Nintendo gave us that opportunity. And, of course, they years later, they made other versions, They, instead of just a boring gray color, they, that the clear pattern you can see inside of it. They made it different colors. They made the Game Boy Pocket, which is even a smaller version of, that big ass thing. Because did you ever try to put a Game Boy in your pocket comfortably? Like one of those older ones. You couldn't do it. It's not like today. You put your phone in your pocket, you're good. You accidentally sit on it, with your fat ass. That's your problem. I mean, this one you definitely will not forget it's in your pocket. Absolutely. And then eventually they came out with the Game Boy Light. Which, thank God for that, because I had that attachment where, like, you put it, again, guys, like, it got to a point where it was just insane. Like, it was just, it looked like this, like, mutation before your eyes, and it would just never, it got to a point where the Game Boy was so heavy with all this extra shit that you couldn't lift it anymore, and you had to stay at home anyway, just to play it. And, you put the screen on there with the light, and it looks like your Game Boy has bifocals, it's like the Steve Urkel of the Nintendo world. And, and then and then of course that needed batteries, and that took 4 batteries. So you got 4 batteries in the back, and then you had to still tilt it a certain way because the light came out in one direction, and then you had to put down the mirror, like you're opening a window at home. Holy fucking shit! I'm exhausted just thinking about this shit. I don't know how the fuck I played any of these games. I just played a few, just to pass the time. Was it worth it in the end? Yeah, it kind of was, actually. You know what? It was fun. You got to keep in mind it was a different time, but nowadays it's just things are so much easier. You just download the games, play them on your phone, But back then, this is all we had. But it was fun, though. There was something fun about it, I still love it. Still love these games. And if you don't mind, ladies and gentlemen, I would love to talk to you about my top 10 favorite Nintendo games. So, of course, we're going to start from the bottom and then go up. I'm Canadian. Drake put this logic inside my head, and if it ain't broken, don't fix it. So, we're going to start with number 10. And my number 10 game is, surprise, surprise, Tetris. Now I know what you're thinking. You just badmouth Tetris for the last couple minutes. Why are you putting Tetris on your list? It's a fun game. It really is. Obviously, they had it for pretty much every system out there. Everything from Nintendo to present systems. They put 3D versions there. There's something about the Game Boy Tetris version. It's just so reminiscent. Obviously, it came with the system. It's like the Super Mario Brothers of the Game Boy games. It came with the system. So this is your first introduction to the Game Boy. And just getting used to the buttons and, the play, the background, the way it's structured, all that shit, And it's a very simple game. You know what Tetris is? I'll tell you what Tetris is. First of all, it's got some of the most addictive music you can ever hear in your life. I mean, there were times I would just hear this song. That is in my fucking head for the rest of my life, and there's nothing I can do about it. Okay? Moving the pieces, and then you're lucky enough to get a Tetris, which is 4 lines in a row. I'm getting a little ahead of myself. Basically the whole point of the game is you're given all these different kinds of blocks, and it's a screen, and your whole purpose, not so much in life, but in the game, is just to make lines. So you can have 1 line, double line, triple line, and you get a 4th line. It's a Tetris. Now, it's even funner to play when you play against another person. And again, it's like an umbilical cord that comes with each system. You hook it up to, another Game Boy, another person that, is lucky enough to have a Game Boy. By the way, I want to give a shout out to my parents for buying me all these systems. I do appreciate it oh so much. And you hook it up to another Game Boy. And I remember in grade 5, I did this with someone. And this was some futuristic shit. Again, something as simple as hooking up one system to another just so you could play Tetris. And the whole point is, to see if you could beat your opponent. So, you get 1 line, it gets added to the other person screen there. So they get another line, so their thing gets higher and higher and higher. And then once you just run out of screen, it's game over. And that's it. That's Tetris. It's very simple. It's just basically that introduction, Nintendo's very good at that. Like, they'll start you off with a game, that comes with the system, that introduces you to the system. So Tetris, I will always love. And obviously, it's always more fun playing against someone. So, number 9, definitely got to say, a little game called Alleyway. Now, when you grow up, especially at nighttime, you learn alleyways are something to stay away from. On Game Boy, it's a completely different story. you want to definitely try this game. Now, this is one of my personal favorites. Basically, this is the Game Boy's answer to Arkanoid. Now, if you don't know what Arkanoid is, shame on you. Arkanoid is a very simple game. Again, I love simple games. I'm a very simple man. Me and Skinnerd, we got so much in common. And basically, you're a little spaceship, a little oval spaceship at the end of the screen, at the bottom, Again, you start at the bottom, you're given a ball, and you shoot the blocks. That's it. Now, Arkanoid obviously is a better game for Nintendo. You get all these weapons, it's more colorful. But the Game Boy, again, it's very simple. Something, again, to me, very reminiscent, about the whole, game. It reminds me a lot of Arkanoid. Obviously, it's not as good, but it's challenging. It's one of those games where I believe, like when they say that Nintendo, or just video games in general, it's good to play for maybe an hour or two a day, they say, because it helps you just concentrate. And if you do believe in that bullshit. I mean, I sort of do. But you can't spend 8 hours looking at a fucking screen. You'll go nuts, especially this, little green patch they give you on this brick of a system. But again, it's very much fun to play. It just, ding, 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 ding. What's cool about this one is right in the beginning, you see Mario jump in the little spaceship there. So I don't know, was he controlling Arkanoid shit? I have no idea. But again, a very simple game. It's just about concentration and, finding out, different patterns on how to hit blocks. And they got bonus stages. And, the stages get harder as they go along. They start moving. So, you got to time everything right. And it's just a fun game. It's one of those games that, you play for a bit and you're like, it's okay. But then you get, addicted to it, kind of like Tetris. So I recommend that game. It's a lot of fun. Now, number 8, a little game they call Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Fall of the Foot Clan. Now, they made a couple of these games on the system. I believe they made 3 of them. The second one, I got to be honest with you, I don't like the way they made the turtles look. They made them, I don't know, like they're running to take a shit for some reason. I don't know. They have this weird look on their face. And the third one, I don't know. They start you off with Michelangelo, and I like Michelangelo. Don't get me wrong, But if I want to play as Raphael for the whole game, that's my God-given right. Okay. So again, if you don't know who the Ninja Turtles are, shame on you. I did a whole podcast about it. The title is pretty self-explanatory, okay? They're teenagers, they're mutants, they know ninja, and they're fucking turtles, okay? And then they're going around just, beating up the Foot Clan, which is their bad guys, the ninjas, all the bosses. It's a very simple game. Again, are you guys seeing a pattern here with the whole simple thing? Good little beat 'em up there, Sometimes it gets repetitive, I'm not going to lie, but, it's fun. Different stages, good music too. Just a good game. I'm a fan of the Turtles. I always will be. Again, listen to the podcast that I did about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. You'll see how I made this game number 8. And number 7, Kirby's Dream Land. Now, back in the day, I had no idea what the fuck a Kirby was. This was introduced to me through Game Boy, actually. They obviously made the game on Nintendo. And, he's just, I don't know what the hell a Kirby is supposed to be. He kind of looks like I don't know, like if Casper had like an obese problem, but again, he's just going around, just eating shit, sucking up shit, and, just fighting off bad guys with the power of his breath. I know it sounds weird, but it's actually a very fun game. You eat certain enemies and they give you power. Sometimes you just shoot the enemies at other enemies. It's a very fun game. Very simple, very chill. That's why it's number 7. Plain and simple. Now, number 6, Castlevania 2, Belmont's Revenge. Now, They made 3 of these games. I could have easily put number 1 or number 3. Personally, I feel number 2 is the best. I feel the play control is better. The characters look better. It's just a very fun game. Now, if you don't know anything about Castlevania, it's basically about a guy named Simon Belmont and his quest to get Dracula. And he goes into different stages, fights off mummies and all these creatures and all that. And it's just a fun game. And if you ever play the Nintendo one, out of the 3, I recommend number 3 on that one. But on Game Boy, I got to recommend number 2. Again, it's just, the same thing. He's got his whip. He gets weapons along the way, and definitely gets more challenging as it goes along. So it's a good game. It's fun. Like I said, a little bit challenging at the end there. But, yeah. That's why it's number 6. And number 5, a little game called Operation C, which most people know as Contra. They had a couple games on Game Boy that were, part of the whole Contra franchise there. I put Contra in my top 10 list on a Nintendo. And surprise, surprise, I love the Game Boy version as well. It mostly borrows from the Part 2 one on Nintendo. It takes a couple things from that, I always thought it was a cool concept, Contra. I mean, it's very simple. I mean, a lot of these, shoot 'em up games, I don't know, they don't... It's so weird. They just don't make them as good. I mean, the play control feels stiff. With Contra, it always feels great. I don't know. I mean, you shoot in every direction. It sounds weird me saying that because, I mean, you look at Game Stadia, obviously you can do way more. But back then, it was just, like a simple game like Contra was just so much fun, You get the spread weapon, which is the bullets that spread. Everybody that knows Contra knows the spread. Okay, it's the best weapon. Once you get that one, you're good. You're set for the game. You're trying not to die because then you're going to lose the spread and then you're screwed. So it's about this guy who's basically like a Rambo type, and he's saving the world from aliens. That's right. It sounds like a movie that Michael Bay would make today, but which I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if he did. But actually, it would make for a pretty cool movie. I mean, it's like Rambo meets Alien. So always enjoyed Contra, even the worst game is still the best game, but I definitely recommend Operation C, and that's why it's number 5. And number 4 is the classic Super Mario Land. Now, Super Mario, I don't gotta say who Super Mario is. It's Nintendo. Sonic, Genesis, Mario, Nintendo. It's that simple. We all, enough said. That's it. I mean, Mario's the king, okay? And I'm not just saying that because I'm half Italian, okay? He's just awesome. And, obviously Super Mario Land is, I guess, kind of a spinoff of, Super Mario World and Super Mario Brothers. It's just that whole thing. But what's crazy about this game, it just stands out more. They came out with Super Mario Land 2, 6 gold coins, and then the third one was the Wario Land, whatever. I recommend those games. They're good too, but there's something about Super Mario Land that just stands out by itself. First off, look at the cover of this game. Okay, so I mentioned before, you bought the system, you either got Tetris, or you were lucky enough to get Super Mario Land. And just look at this cover. I mean, Mario's right in the dead center. The guy must be on fucking acid. I mean, look at this. He's running away from fucking everything. First of all, he sees himself flying a plane, which is basically the size of him in the sky. On top of that, he's dealing with some kind of alien that's shooting him. Birds, he's got the princess in the background there. Once again, she gets kidnapped. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. Is she a Karen? Who knows? But the Pharaoh, shooting fire at him. He's got to go underwater and shoot octopuses. He's fighting those statues, with the long face and the noses, whatever. And then he's facing some kind of plants and zombies, and people are throwing fucking rocks at him. I mean, this is just a fucking trip, you know? So you play this game and you're facing all these different enemies. Like, he doesn't have, you know, the typical weapons that he had in Mario 3 or Mario World. I mean, he's got some weird kind of, it's not even a fireball. It's just like a cannon or whatever. And, you know, he's got it's just a whole different game. I mean, this is almost like the black sheep, I feel, of the Super Mario World, you know. I'm talking about, like, you know, like way back in the day, not now. I mean, I don't know. I've seen games now where, I don't know, Mario's hat is talking to him and he turns into a fucking cat. I don't know what the hell happened. But, yeah, but back then, I mean, this was totally trippy, you know. And out of the 3 games on Game Boy, this is by far the best one. It's a lot of fun. I definitely recommend playing this game. I mean, it's fun just at the end of every stage. You try to get the bonus stage and, you know, it's just a very fun game. And that's how you know a game, ladies and gentlemen, is a good game, because it's fun. And that's why it's number 4. And at number 3, I put Mega Man 5. Now, for those who know me and my Nintendo list, you know, I probably pissed off a lot of nerds by saying that Mega Man 3 on Nintendo is better than Mega Man 2. I'm going to put that on my tombstone. I don't give a shit what anybody else says. They always say the music is better in Part 2. Fuck you. It's better in Part 3. The stages are better. The weapons are better. That's it. So when they made, you know, and keep in mind, when they made a lot of these games for Nintendo, I should have mentioned this before, you know, I mean, a lot of them were like just ports from Nintendo or Super Nintendo, and they're just shit. I mean, you can't play Mortal Kombat on Game Boy. You just can't. You can't play Donkey Kong Country. It's just, it's all shit. You know what I mean? So, and with Mega Man, I mean, you know, they tried to put the same characters from the same games on there, from 1 to 6 on Nintendo onto here. Most of the cards don't have the same guys. I mean, they probably do, but they don't have as many. And then they put, you know, whatever, maybe 3 or 4 instead of 8. And it just sucks, you know. But then you go to Mega Man 5. Okay, and Mega Man 5, it's its own game. So what they do is they do a whole kind of space thing where each robot is named after a planet, and it just stands out. It's its own game. You know, I was surprised when I was playing it, because I wasn't even going to bother to play it, because I just heard, you know, all these other Mega Man games for Game Boy were the same. But this game is awesome. You know, Mega Man pretty much always delivers. I mean, even the shittiest Mega Man game on Nintendo is still good. You know what I mean? So, you know, different bosses, different levels. There's even parts of the game where it's kind of like focused out. You know, like certain, yeah. I mean, they'll give him the Rush Dog there, and they even give him like a cat robot or something, and different weapons and all this shit. And like the screen kind of backs up and it's like a different view. It's pretty cool. I mean, good graphics. It's just a great game. Mega Man, I've always enjoyed their games, and Mega Man 5 for Game Boy definitely stands out, and that's why it is number 3. Now, number 2 is Donkey Kong, or it's also known as Donkey Kong 94. Now, we all know Mario has had problems since the Atari days on always trying to rescue his woman. And his woman just keeps getting kidnapped. I don't know, they keep having fights over bullshit, and I don't know, maybe it's like a Raging Bull thing where she overcooked the steak or something, you know, it's a piece of charcoal, bring it over here. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not going to act out the whole thing, okay? All I'm saying is, she gets getting kidnapped, and in the 80s, it was all about Donkey Kong. It was a huge thing in the arcades, huge. And I remember playing it on my parents' Atari, and it was a good game. The only problem was, it was 3 stages. You could literally pass the game in like not even 2 minutes. That's it, and then that's it. It just keeps looping again and again and again and again. You know, so I don't know what the fuck they were gonna do with this game. So, play the game. Obviously, it's the same 3 fucking stages that I'm sick and tired of. And then the game completely starts over and it's brand new. It's almost like Mario 3, just Donkey Kong. You know, tons of levels, tons of stages, tons of new challenges. Like each stage is a puzzle, in the sense where you gotta figure out how to get the key, and then you put the key in the lock, and is that a symbol for something? I don't know. The point is, it's just a great game. So it's almost like Mario 3 meets Donkey Kong. And, each stage it gets harder because then you got to figure out like certain patterns, to get the key. Cool bonus stages, great graphics. I'm assuming it did come out in 1994 because it's Donkey Kong 94. Yeah, it was. I think it might be one of the last games that came out for the original system. So they figured, let's just go all out, and they did, and it's excellent, absolutely excellent. Great game, very, very fun. They definitely went beyond the 3 stages. I like how they did that. They started off the 3 stages thinking, oh shit, like it's just going to be whatever, the same shit. And then it turns into a completely different and new fun game. And it's awesome. So definitely recommend that one. And that's why it's number 2. Now, I always like to do some honorable mentions. I always see all these top 10 lists online, and people are like, oh, what do you consider a good game, but maybe didn't make the list, whatever. I just want to say this right off the bat, and I probably said this in my Nintendo and Super Nintendo reviews. I'm not a big RPG guy. I'm not into like Final Fantasy or these Pokemons. I don't give a shit. I mean, people say, you got to find them all. I don't want to find one. I don't give a fuck. I really don't. Okay. But if that's your thing, that's your thing. I mean, they look like good games, so whatever. Other games I would recommend, Bonk's Revenge, good game. Joe and Mac, Caveman Ninja, which the title alone had me interested, and I'm sure it will for you. Metroid 2, Return to Samus. Again, I'm not a big fan of Metroid. It's okay. Like I said about the first one in Nintendo, it is just... like, if you don't have a map, you're fucked. I mean, but it's okay. It's okay. And, games like Donkey Kong Land, and Country, again, they're good games, but, like you're playing through the Game Boy, and I get it, like you're playing all these other games for Game Boy, so why are you giving these guys props? It's like, well, I'm used to, 64, man. I mean, it's just not the same, or Super Nintendo or whatever. It just doesn't, I don't know, it's okay, people like them, what are you going to do? There's a Gargoyle's Quest, good little game. Batman, love Batman, obviously. Everybody knows that by now. It's weird about Batman because Batman is almost like if Batman meant Super Mario Land. I almost felt like they just copied that game. It's still a good game, just I don't know, it feels like a copy to me. DuckTales 1 and 2, recommend those as well. Very good. I recommend 2 over 1, but that's just my opinion. And yeah, that's pretty much the games. Didn't make the list, but I still recommend. Now, for the number 1 game that I feel is just an absolute classic for the Nintendo Game Boy is The Legend of Zelda: Link's Awakening. Now, let me just start by saying this. Yes, I am aware there's Link's Awakening DX. I'm told that is made for Game Boy Color. You can play it on the normal Game Boy, but you can't play the bonus stage. That's what I'm told, okay? I'm a nerd that I know that, but I'm not that much of a nerd that I'm actually going to do that more research on it. So that's what I've heard, so I don't know. Believe what you want to believe. But anyways, this game is excellent. And, like I said, if you like The Legend of Zelda on Nintendo, Super Nintendo, you're absolutely going to love this game. In many ways, honestly, this game, I mean, do I dare say it's better than the one on Nintendo? I don't know. I mean, it's definitely not better than the one on Super Nintendo. I'll just say that. I mean, Super Nintendo to me is classic, but you know, they put a lot into this game, a lot, and they always do with Zelda games. You know, the whole point of this game is that he ends up on some island, and he's just wondering how he got there. And you know, of course, the classic Zelda. You know, he's lost. He doesn't know what to do, and he's helping out everybody in town. There's different levels you got to do. You get your special weapons. You know, what's crazy about this game is that like they combine all these other Nintendo characters, like I just mentioned, Kirby. They put Wart in there from Mario Land, Mario, Super Mario 2 on Nintendo, which we all know is not the real Super Mario 2. Blah blah blah. We all know that story. But all these like really interesting characters, and it's just a really fun game. I don't want to go that deep into it because it's just I don't want to give a lot away. I remember when I did my research before about Zelda. When they created Zelda, they said it's one of those games. You're meant to just explore the land and just experience it yourself. And that's what makes Zelda games so much fun. I mean, they're little mini puzzles. I mean, there's parts in the game where you have to remember certain things that lead to something else. In this game as well, they have a thing where you keep trading for items and then you get like a special item at the end. The DX version has an extra stage where you can, get a power up, between 1 to 2 power ups. It's up to you, which one you choose. It's just a great game. It really is. It's cool with Zelda. Yeah, I've always liked The Legend of Zelda. It's always been one of my favorite game series. It's always fun. And this game will definitely not disappoint. Like I said, if you love Nintendo, if you love Super Nintendo, if you love Zelda just in general, you will absolutely fall in love with this game. It's absolutely worth checking out. And all I can say is this: thank God that a lot of these games you can play on your phone now, because now they're color, and and yes, I am aware that there was a Game Boy Color, there was a Game Boy Advance, and now there's Nintendo DS, and I don't know if that's still making shit, whatever. I'm just saying, like, I'm aware of these other things, and I'm aware, of the magic of color now on Game Boy. But back then you were just used to that, like, monotone green, and you just had no choice. But now it's great, so you can play on your phone. And but of course, if you're that old school, and if you really feel like straining your eyes, and if you are in a well-lit area, you can play these games on Game Boy still, and they're highly collectible. uh, you know I think they're just gonna keep going up, especially once they make this Mario movie. I mean, hopefully it'll be a hit, and then they'll make other movies. Maybe eventually we'll get a Mega Man movie, a Zelda movie, Metroid movie. Who knows? I mean, the possibilities are endless. But when we were kids, like, we just play this little game in our hands, and we'd be like, are we ever gonna see this on the big screen? And then unfortunately we did with Mario Brothers in '93, and holy shit, that was a mess. Yeah, I mean, it's funny watching it now. Don't get me wrong, but I mean, like we gotta, we we're better than that. And the Game Boy system, obviously it was meant to be, just a starter, for portable games for Nintendo, and it's grown to be so much more. But back in the day, this is all we had. And even back then, the 10 games I just listed right now were a lot of fun. And, I just want to say thank you very much for all the years of entertainment, from Nintendo. I mean, definitely was a big part of my childhood. Could I afford the Game Boy camera? No. Did I want to get the Game Boy camera? No. Again, thank God for phones. I don't need that shit. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I heard at one point the Game Boy designed some kind of shit where, like, kids would go into surgery, and they would hook up a certain thing to their face, and it would give them like images or something to look at before surgery or something. And like, it never actually took off. But I mean, but this is how, futuristic Game Boy was. I mean, now we got virtual games and all this shit. And, of course, we know Virtual Boy fucking sucked too. And I don't know. I heard some kid played it in Japan and for 3 days straight, and he went blind, or I don't know. Fuck. I remember playing it one time at a Wolco. I'm really dating myself here, but yeah, I don't know. I didn't like it, but again, with everything that Game Boy came out with, I mean, there was tons of other stuff. It was better than those Tiger games. That's for fucking sure. I had a couple of those games. I played tennis one time. I left them there, and then I went back there an hour later. They were gone, and then I realized I think that person did me a favor. But the point is, the actual Game Boy system, it was really cool for its time, and it is, obviously, they made so many of these, but but it is really a relic. It just feels like something that should be seen in a museum, but but there's people out there that still want it, you know what I mean? It's crazy. So, I mean, that's the power of Game Boy, it's that little piece of history in the 90s that's just there. You think portable games, it's boom, Game Boy. That's the first thing you think of, not like Game Gear or Game Links or whatever. And like those things were color, and then for some reason, like Game Boy was, for the longest time, it was just like black and white, and it stood out. I don't know. I mean, I don't know why. I mean, like, even thinking back now, it's like, well, why didn't I get something that was color? I mean, I mean, it was probably more expensive, and I don't know. A lot of times, like, I don't know, certain things like it didn't work as well. You had to have it on an angle to play it too, and I think the Game Boy obviously came first, and I think it just kind of put its staple in society, and boom, that's it. It was it. And Nintendo was such a big name back then. Not that it isn't now, but like back then, that's it. If Nintendo didn't make it, that's it. You're done. That's it. Like, we got it. We got you. And like I said, I was a big Nintendo kid growing up, and yeah, Game Boy was a lot of fun. And like I said, I'd like to thank everybody for creating the good old Game Boy from Nintendo. Created lots of wasted hours. I shouldn't say that. I mean, maybe half of them were wasted, just trying to find some light. Half of them were just really enjoyable. I'm just kidding around. But yeah, Game Boy was a lot of fun growing up. And I definitely recommend the 10 games that I listed. And who knows? Maybe one day I'll do a top 10 Game Boy Color, top 10 Game Boy Advance, top 10 Nintendo DS. I don't know. Top 10. I can't even think of. I can barely think of 5 games for 64. Yeah. I know people are gonna give me shit for saying that. Go fuck yourself. Mega Man 3 is still better. The point is that the Game Boy is an awesome piece of history in the Nintendo world. And I just wanted to share with you how awesome this system was for me. And ladies and gentlemen, that was my top 10 Nintendo Game Boy games.